For many years, humans kept a low profile in the galaxy, while other advanced alien species showed off their shiny ships, powerful weapons, and huge space stations. Earth stayed quiet. The Galactic Council thought humans were just another young species, curious, maybe a little clever, but not important. They called them harmless. Some even called them slow. But what no one realized was that this silence wasn't because of weakness. It was by choice. While aliens were busy arguing over trade deals, fighting over territory, and holding long council meetings full of pride and noise, humanity was listening, watching, learning. They stayed out of the spotlight, pretending to be small and unimportant. But behind the scenes, far from any star map, they were building something. Something the galaxy wasn't ready for in the far corners of space. Near dead moons and silent asteroid fields, humans were working. Their ships had no bright lights, and their signals were hidden. They used old wreckage and space debris to hide their movements. Drones scanned every corner, but nothing seemed out of place. If you looked closely, it was just empty space. But deep within those empty places, strange things began to happen. Pirate groups started going missing, one by one. At first, no one cared. Pirates disappear all the time. But then, full scout teams vanished. Government patrols entered certain sectors and were never heard from again. It's only a few managed to escape, and the things they said sounded impossible. They spoke of a planet that wasn't on any chart. A massive world that moved through space slowly, like a shadow. It didn't glow, it didn't speak, it didn't even attack. Just appeared and then disappeared again. Some said it was a ghost. Others thought it was a trick or some strange, natural event. The council dismissed the rumors. Nothing that size can move without being seen, they said. No one can hide a planet. But humans were doing exactly that, the strange part. Earth wasn't showing any sign of danger. Their trade was low, their population hadn't grown much. Their ships looked outdated. It was as if they had stopped trying to keep up with the rest of the galaxy. It was behind that calm surface. They were hiding something much bigger, even there. Closest neighbors didn't notice. It's how careful humanity had become. They didn't want attention. They didn't want power. Not yet. They were building something the galaxy had never seen, a weapon that couldn't be tracked. A machine so large and so powerful, it needed years of silence just to prepare. The galaxy had always thought of Earth as peaceful, a species that loved music, learning, and peace talks. And yes, humans did value those things. But they also remembered their own history wars, betrayals, the cost of being too trusting. They knew the galaxy could be cruel, so they prepared. Not loudly, not in the open, but in silence. That silence was the most dangerous sound in the galaxy, and the galaxy had no idea. It's something the size of a planet covered in weapons, powered by secrets. And guided by minds who never forgot what survival truly meant, was waiting in the shadows. It was patient. It was hidden. And it was ready to move, but not yet. The galaxy was still laughing. After years of silence, strange reports started coming in from far-off parts of the galaxy at first. It was just small thing ships that didn't return from. Routine patrols, freighters that vanished without a trace, or a transmission that suddenly went silent mid-sentence. People blamed pirates, or maybe black holes. Space was full of dangers. Nothing too unusual. But then, something strange happened. A large exploration ship, carrying some of the most advanced alien scouts, disappeared near a quiet star system. Days passed, and weeks. No signal, no distress call. Finally, one broken. Escape pod drifted into a nearby spaceport, barely functioning. The survivor inside was badly injured and frightened out of his mind. He kept saying the same thing over and over again. We saw it. It wasn't a planet. It moved. The alien officials tried to calm him down. They asked him to explain. But his answers made no sense. He described something enormous. A world without life, but with purpose. It had no cities, no oceans, no signs of nature. Just metal and silence. The closer they got, the the more their systems began to fail. Then, without warning, they lost control. The last thing he remembered was everything going dark. The Galactic Council reviewed the report. Most of them laughed. Possible, they said. How can a planet move? Even if it could, how would you miss it? They thought the survivor had lost his mind in deep space. The story was ignored. But behind the scenes, others started noticing a pattern. Over the past year, at least 19 ships had disappeared near the same region, all in areas that were supposed to be empty. The star. Systems were quiet. The maps showed nothing. Yet ships kept vanishing. Sometimes the wreckage was found, sometimes not. And the ones who survived, if any, described the same thing. Huge silent shadow, no lights, no signals, just a presence. A shape too large to believe in still. No one took it seriously, but humans knew what was happening. They had built something. Out there, something so large it blended in with planets. So silent it escaped detection. So carefully hidden, it never made a sound until it needed to. The warship didn't send warnings. It didn't chase anyone. It simply waited, and anyone who got too close disappeared. Even other humans didn't know everything. Only a few people on Earth were aware of what had been created. Most people believed their government had just gone quiet for budget reasons, or political struggles. But no while the world watched sports and news reports deep in the outer edges of the solar system. Humanity was testing something beyond anyone's imagination. They called it observation mode. The warship didn't attack unless needed. It simply observed, watching how aliens moved, how their ships worked, how they reacted under stress. Every time a ship got too close, the warship learned more. Every mistake was studied. Every reaction recorded, and if a ship became a threat, it vanished. No sound, a fire, just silence. Still, the galaxy believed Earth was weak. Still, they mocked humanity's simple ways and slow progress. They didn't realize that slow was part of the plan. They didn't see the patience behind the quiet. They didn't hear the warning in the silence. One day the council would understand, but by then, it would be too late. For now, the warship slept under a blanket of stars, surrounded by nothing. And yet, prepared for everything, the galaxy had no idea that something this powerful had already moved, and it would move again many years before the galaxy noticed anything strange. Earth had already started something big, something secret. It was called Project Obsidian, a plan so massive and so hidden that even most humans had no idea it existed. It all began with a quiet discovery under the red dust of Mars. While digging near an old crater, scientists found ruins. Not human ruins, alien, very old. The walls were made of strange black metal that didn't rust or break. Some parts still glowed faintly, even after being buried for thousands of years. The strange part, the design wasn't like anything, though. Galaxy knew. Even the most advanced alien species hadn't used this kind of technology. At first, Earth's scientists thought it was just another mystery. But then they discovered something terrifying and powerful, hidden deep in that ancient structure, a system that controlled gravity. It wasn't just theory. It worked. This discovery changed everything. The world's leaders didn't go public with it. They didn't share it with the Galactic Council. Instead, they came together in secret. For the first time in human history, rival countries worked side by side, not for power, but for survival, because they all understood one thing. If the rest of the galaxy ever tried to control Earth, this technology would be their only hope. And so, Project Obsidian began. In deep space, far from Earth, humans started building, but not on planets. They found dwarf planets, empty and cold, floating in the dark. No one cared about them. They made them perfect. They carved out the insides of these dwarf planets, turning them into something else, something deadly, hidden. Reactors were built. Weapon systems, the size of mountains, were installed. Thousands of engineers and workers lived and died out there, never returning home, never sharing what they had seen. Every detail was kept quiet. Every mistake was buried in silence. The galaxy thought these planets were just rocks, lifeless, useless. They had no idea. They were looking at the future of warfare. The outside of each warship was covered with asteroid dust and metal that reflected no light, They didn't glow. They didn't send signals. They didn't even leave energy trails. They were invisible to scanners, invisible to eyes. Just floating rocks till they moved. But they weren't just war machines. They were also homes. Each one had space for thousands of people. Scientists, pilots, soldiers. These were not just weapons, they were floating cities. Prepared to live in space for years, even decades. Back on Earth, people still believed the government was cutting space budgets. They didn't know the real money had been sent to the edge of the solar system. Not for exploration, but for defense. Earth had learned a lesson from history. When the powerful talk about peace, they often mean control. And when they smile, they often hide teeth. So humans didn't wait for the galaxy to turn against them. They prepared quietly. They didn't want war. But they wouldn't run from it either. These warships, these sleeping giants, were the result of that promise. Still, the Council had no clue. They laughed at Earth. They ignored human warnings. To them, humans were simple, small, weak. But humans weren't weak. They were focused. Every lost scout ship, every strange signal, every vanishing pirate fleet was part of the test. Signal to Earth's command center that the machines were ready, and now those hidden planets weren't. Just ready to move. They were ready to fight. The galaxy finally made its mistake. For years, the Galactic Council had ignored Earth. They believed humans were no threat. A small planet, small voice, nothing serious. But over time, Earth had expanded. Its reach. Quietly, humans had built colonies on small moons and distant planets. They worked hard, stayed peaceful, never asked for much. But that peace was mistaken for weakness. One day, a powerful alien empire requested permission from the Council to supervise human colonies in the outer zones. On paper, they called it help, they said. Humans needed protection. But everyone knew what it really meant. Invasion. The Council approved it. No warning. No discussion with Earth. Just a signed order. Within days, warships from that alien empire arrived at the outer human colonies. At first, they just flew overhead, watching. Then came the orders. Surrender your weapons. Shut down your systems. Obey. Some humans tried to negotiate. They said they were peaceful settlers. They had no army, just workers and families. But their words were ignored. The invaders wanted control. When the humans didn't kneel, the ships opened fire. Buildings were burned. Outposts destroyed. People were forced into camps. Earth tried to send help, but every rescue ship was blocked or shot down. The message was clear. Stay down, or be next. The news reached Earth in broken signals, distress calls, cries for help. Then, silence. The silence hurt more than anything. People on Earth were angry. Some were scared. But those who were part of Project Obsidian didn't panic. They knew this day would come. In fact, they had prepared for it. Deep in a command base under frozen rock, signal was sent out. Quiet, direct. It traveled through encrypted channels, bounced off secret satellites, and reached the cold metal walls of something hiding in the dark. The warship woke up. It had no official name. Just a code, Unit 7A, 2 outsiders. Still looked like a dwarf planet, lifeless, frozen. But inside, engines began to hum. Lights blinked on. Systems checked themselves. No sound left the hull, not even a whisper. The ship didn't move fast. It didn't need to. Its size was beyond anything the galaxy had seen. From a distance, it still looked like a floating rock. But slowly, it turned, pointing itself toward the colony that had been attacked. Its route avoided busy sectors. It passed through shadowed parts of space. No beacons, no warnings. The enemy had no idea what was coming. Back on Earth, only a few leaders watched the screen in silence. They didn't celebrate. They didn't smile. They knew what was about to happen wasn't just a rescue, it was a message. Humanity wasn't weak. They had simply stayed quiet. But now the silence had been broken. The massive warship moved like a ghost through the stars. It's invisible to scanners, cloaked by dark matter fields. And as it approached the occupied colony, it powered up its first weapons, each the size of skyscrapers. On the surface, the enemy still felt safe. They had tanks. They had drones. They believed they had already won. They were wrong. Without a single warning, the sky above them split open. A shadow larger than their entire fleet drifted silently above the colony. They looked up, expecting a moon or asteroid, but what they saw was something built, not born. And before they could react, the first strike came. No sound, just light. Blinding and sudden, it was the beginning of something the galaxy would never forget. The warship had moved, and nothing would ever be the same. The warship didn't roar. It didn't flash lights or send threats. It simply arrived, and everything changed. Above the captured human colony, the skies darkened. At first, the alien soldiers thought it was just a passing shadow, but the shadow didn't move away. Stayed and grew. Their scanners picked up nothing. No energy signals. No messages. Just silence. Then came the tremors. The ground shook gently at first, like distant thunder. But it wasn't coming from the earth. It was coming from above. People looked up and saw it clearly for the first time. A structure so large it looked like a second sky. But it was not a moon. It's not a rock. It was made of black metal that seemed to drink the light around it. Its surface was smooth in some places, jagged in others, like it had teeth hidden behind its walls. And then it began to move. Weapons the size of mountains slowly turned toward the surface. Giant rail cannons locked into position, drone-shaped. Like swarms unfolded from its belly and shot across the sky like silent birds of prey, and then finally it struck. The first blast didn't make a sound on the ground. There was no explosion, no smoke, no fireball. Just a pulse of light, and the enemy's central base disappeared. It's gone in an instant. Not even dust remained. Alien troops who had taken over human outposts panicked. Their systems failed. Their ships lost power. Their leaders tried to call for backup, but no message ever left the planet. The warship was not just attacking, it was shutting everything down. One by one, enemy ships floated up into the sky, pulled by invisible forces, and then just as quietly, they were crushed into tiny pieces. Like paper in the hands of a giant, the aliens didn't understand what they were fighting. Their weapons were useless. Their armor was weak. Even their most powerful shields cracked and faded without resistance. They had never faced something like this before, because this wasn't just a ship. This was a planet turned into a weapon, and it was not alone. While the first warship cleared the skies, two more appeared, one from the dark side of a nearby moon, another from deep space. Each one looked different, designed for different tasks. One was made for heavy attacks. The other carried thousands of fighter drones and command units. Together, they didn't speak. They didn't ask for surrender. They simply took back the colony. But even with all this power, the warships did something surprising. They didn't harm civilians. Any enemy soldier who dropped their weapons and backed away was not targeted. Human survivors were carefully rescued, not ignored. Medical drones were sent down, food was dropped, people were protected. That was the moment the galaxy realized something important. These warships were not built for conquest. They were built for protection. The enemy empire didn't just lose a colony. They lost their pride. Their strongest weapons were useless. Their fastest ships couldn't run. And worst of all, they had no idea how to fight back, because they didn't even know how these warships moved without being seen. The council held emergency meetings. Leaders shouted at each other. Some wanted answers. Others wanted war. But deep down, they all felt the same thing. Fear. They had laughed at humanity. They had ignored Earth's warnings. Now, they had seen what humans had built in silence, and still, not a single word had come from Earth. No threats. No demands. Just action. And that made it even scarier. Because if humanity could build something like this in secret, what else were they hiding? The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Within just a few days, the alien empire that attacked the human colonies was in complete shock. Their strongest bases were gone. Their fleets were scattered. Their leaders were silent. No one could understand how humans had done it. But the truth was simple. Humans didn't fight with noise. They fought with precision. The warships didn't attack every building or every soldier. They chose targets carefully: command centers, weapons storage, communication systems. One by one, the enemy's power was shut off like flipping a switch. It was like someone had studied their every move before even firing a shot, and that's exactly what had happened. For years, while the galaxy ignored Earth, the humans were studying everything. They listened to alien conversations, watched how other species fought wars, learned their weaknesses. Most importantly, they didn't copy anyone. They created their own way. The warships moved in silence. No big speeches, no banners, just cold, calm action. And that's what made them terrifying. Some enemy soldiers tried to escape. They jumped into their ships and fled toward deep space, hoping to warn their leaders. But those ships never made it far. The human warships didn't chase. Instead, small drone units detached and followed quietly. Once close enough, they shut down the engines remotely. The ships floated in space, helpless. Every alien commander who had mocked Earth was now silent. The council called for emergency. Talks panic filled the chambers. The loudest voices were now begging for answers. How did humans build these ships? Why didn't we see them coming? Are we next? No one had answers. The worst part: Earth still hadn't said a single word. The humans hadn't claimed new territory. They hadn't sent threats or warnings. They simply took back their colony and then disappeared into the stars again. The warships vanished just as quietly as they came. People across the galaxy began to wonder, were there more of them? Were they watching? Could they already be hiding near other planets? Fear spread faster than any fleet, but inside Earth's main control room, there was no celebration, no dancing, no proud victory speeches. The mood was quiet, focused. They hadn't acted for revenge. They had acted for survival. The goal was never to destroy. It was to send a message, and that message had been delivered clearly. Don't push us. Don't test us. One high-ranking official looked at the war map, showing systems across the galaxy. Then he spoke calmly. We didn't win by being loud. We won because we listened while they laughed. That was the truth behind the victory. Earth had never been weak. They had just been wise. Humanity had learned a valuable lesson from its own past. Too many times in history, people had waited until it was too late to protect themselves. But not this time. This time, they were ready before the first shot was fired. And now, the galaxy knew it. No more jokes about humans being soft or slow. No. More ignoring Earth's voice. Because now, behind every peaceful handshake, there was a shadow. A planet-sized warship. Watching from the dark, and it didn't need to speak. Its silence was louder than war. The war was over.
Out because of peace?
Talks. Not because of surrender papers. It ended with silence. The enemy empire that had attacked the human. Colonies didn't fight back anymore. Their ships were gone. Their bases were empty. And their leaders, well, they stayed quiet now. The fear of what humans had built had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the next meeting of the Galactic Council, every seat was filled. Faces were tense. For once, nobody was yelling or arguing. The room, usually full of pride and politics, now sat in heavy silence, waiting. Finally, a human representative stood up. No bodyguards, no flashing screens. Just one person, standing calmly. And then they spoke. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to take revenge. We did what we had to do. We warned you. You laughed. You invaded. We responded. There was no anger in their voice. There was no hate. Just a quiet, firm truth. You thought we were weak because we were silent, but our silence wasn't fear. It was preparation. The room remained still. No one interrupted. No one dared. And then came the part the galaxy would remember forever. The human continued.
Ow!
We don't want to rule the stars. We want to live in peace. But if anyone threatens our people again, We won't shout. We won't beg. We'll simply remind you, they paused, that we don't build our weapons to show off. We build them so we never have to use them more than once. And with that, they sat back down. That was it. No threats, no demands, just truth. From that day on, everything changed. Alien fleets began rerouting their paths away from human sectors. Border patrols kept their distance. Trade partners treated humans with new respect. Not out of fear alone, but out of understanding, the galaxy finally realized who humans really were. They weren't looking to be heroes or rulers. They were builders, listeners, survivors, and most importantly, the massive warships, now known as the Silent Guardians, didn't return to Earth. They didn't need to. They stayed hidden somewhere in deep space, waiting, watching, not because they wanted to strike, but because they were there to make sure no one forgot what happened. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. People worked, laughed, built new things. Children played under clear skies, not knowing that just beyond the stars, a hidden force kept them safe. Even the colonies that had been attacked started to heal. Rebuilding began. Families returned. And those who had once felt helpless now knew they were never alone. Because behind them, across the vast silence of space, stood the quiet strength of humanity. Stronger than weapons, stronger than fear. It was a lesson to the galaxy. Don't mistake quiet for weak. Don't mistake peace for surrender. And never forget what happens when a patient people decide they've had enough. Humanity didn't want a war, but if the galaxy ever pushed again, they knew how to finish one. Quietly,